It's not burnout, though it can get there. It's not dissatisfaction. You're usually doing well by most measures. It's more like a sense that the standard you've built your work around has become something you carry rather than something you hold. That's the difference. Hello, this is Mei here, a performance coach. I work with professionals who hold themselves to high standards and feel the cost of more than they let on and ready for more ease. This is Volume 10 on professionalism of mindset for driven professionals. If you are new here, you don't need the previous 9 to follow this one. But if you've been with the series from the beginning, I think this one is going to land differently. There is a particular kind of tired that high achievers don't talk much about. Holding something means you can set it down. Carrying it means it's always there. Weighing on the way you look at your own work, at your team, at your mornings, at the people who live alongside you. This video is about the difference between those two things. Over the last 9 volumes, we've looked at where high standards come from, what they protect, what they cost, and in the last video, what we do to people around you. And I want to be clear about something before we go further. Nothing in this series has been an argument against having high standard. That's not what this is. The standard isn't the problem. The relationship with the standard, that is where things get complicated. That's a useful way to think about this. Now, if you ever had building work done, you will know there are walls in the house that you can remove. Knock through to open up the space, change the layout, make this place more livable. And then there are supporting walls. You don't touch those. They are holding the structure up. Builders call them load-bearing. High achievers generally know which walls are load-bearing in their actual buildings. They are competent people. But in the way they work, in the way they hold themselves, and often everything gets treated as load-bearing. The quality of the email, the phrasing of the feedback, the speed of a decision, the first draft of a proposal, all of it weighted as if the whole structure depends on it. And when everything is load-bearing, the building is very hard to live in. And here's a question I want to sit with for a while. If you do the work well, if you hit the standard, do you feel good or do you mainly feel relieved? It's worth noticing because those are different experiences. Relief is what you feel when a threat passes. Satisfaction is what you feel when something genuinely mattered and you delivered it. A lot of high achievers, when they are honest, say it's more relief than satisfaction. The good work doesn't land as good. It lands as safe. And the gap between those two things tell you something about where the standard is coming from. When the standard is operating as a condition, when meeting it is what makes you acceptable to yourself or to others, you don't really get to enjoy the work. You get to avoid the consequence of falling short. And that's a very different thing to live inside. The thing is here isn't about lowering the standard. It's about asking, what is this standard for? Is it for the quality of the work or is it for the feeling of being okay? Because if it is the second one, if your sense of being okay as a person depends on consistently hitting the mark, then the standard can never be high enough. And you can never quite relax. And the people around you feel that, even when you don't say a word. What I see in people who carry this most sustainably isn't that they care less, is that they've developed a kind of structural awareness. They know which walls are actually load-bearing. They apply the full standard to the things that genuinely hold the structure up. This strategic decision, the piece of work that will be seen by many, the conversation that will define a relationship, and they hold everything else with less grip. Not because it doesn't matter, it's because they've learned that the same weight on every wall is how you make a building no one can live in. This is a skill, not a shift in value. It is a more precise application of the standard, which is, if you think about it, a more sophisticated expression of the standard, not a retreat from it. And it starts with one question. Does this actually need to carry weight, or have I just been treating it that way? And harder question, does the way I'm holding this serve the work, or does it serve someone else? Now, someone I worked with, a senior leader in a professional service firm, described it this way. She said, "The work I am proudest of and the work I am most relieved by look identical from the outside. No one can tell the difference, but I can." She'd been at the top of her field for 15 years. The results were there. The reputation was there. But she said what she wanted, what she hasn't had in a long time, was to do good work and actually feel it as good. Not safe, not one more close call successfully navigated. Good. What we worked on wasn't the standard. The standard was the right standard. What we worked on was where the standard was living, which wall she'd made low-bearing that didn't need to be, and what it would mean for her to hold that standard from a place where she already knew she was okay. That's a subtle shift. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but inside is the difference between carrying something and holding something, between the building that has to be constantly propped up so it doesn't fall, and one that's solid enough to actually live in. She still has the standard. She's still at the top of her field. But she said, and I think this is exactly the right word. She said, it feels like she's in the building now rather than holding it up. Now, this series has covered a lot of ground and more to come. Where the standard comes from, what it costs you, what it costs the people around you, and now what it looks like to carry it in a way that actually holds. I want to say something clearly before we finish. The standard doesn't go. That's not what this has been about. If you have been with this series and you've done some real looking at the origins, at the costs, at the relationships, what I hope you're leaving with isn't a softer version of yourself. What I hope you're leaving with is a better question. Not, shall I keep holding this standard? But what is it for now? Because when the standard is an expression of what matters to you, rather than a condition of being acceptable, it becomes something you can actually work with. It sits where it needs to sit, and the rest of the building gets to be lived in. That's not a resolution, it's a different relationship. And that, I think, is worth the work. If this lands with you, a like helps more people to find it. Subscribe for more of these Mindset Matter topics. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. I'm May at Evolve Minds, and until my next video, thank you for watching.